Thanks, Tim, and thanks everyone for joining us. We had a transformational 6-month period. Those of you that have been following our story would know that coronavirus has been super relevant to the story that we've been promoting for a long time, which is dealing with mobility. Essentially, what our solution does that no one else does in our space is deals with the fact that schools and parents give kids devices, and those devices are moving inside and outside of those environments. So I'll talk about that in a moment, but just to set the stage, Family Zone's pretty much a US focused business now. Almost 80% of our revenue is coming out of that market. This last quarter, we added $2 million of recurring revenue out of the US market alone, taking our recurring revenue to just under $10 million. Well funded, with $9.5 million in the bank plus expected receipts. Essentially, we've got a runway of about $20 million, $23 million in fact. So well funded and growing incredibly fast, which I'll now talk to in a moment. So next slide, please. So this is a new slide that I'm putting into our investor decks to really put in context why we're doing this. If any investors have seen or haven't seen the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, I'd really urge you to do so. It is pretty concerning, and it really talks to this issue of social media and gaming platforms using all sorts of mechanisms, including employing psychologists to find ways to addict. They call it engagement, engaging content, keeping our eyeballs online, but what it's doing is really impacting the way kids learn, the way that kids socialize, and the behaviors that kids are undertaking online. Some of the stats that we're seeing now are pretty frightening. Suicide rates doubled in 10 years, rates of depression doubling in 10 years. In Australia, there was a pretty frightening stat that more than a third of kids under 8 last year actually sought out pornography, not just inadvertently stumbled upon pornography because they're searching for pussycats online, but literally came home from school and searched for pornography. These are kids under 8. So these are pretty frightening stats. And I talk to this because the wave behind what we talk about cyber safety, keeping kids safe, is enormous. It's not going away, and regulators are now stepping up, schools are now stepping up, and parents are starting to pay attention. I'll talk to that last bit in a moment. So next slide, please. Okay, so from a commercial perspective, there's a couple of really good things about our space. Obviously the emotion, the sensitivity, the love we have for our kids. We all want to keep them safe. But some of the bigger kind of commercial issues that we take advantage of is firstly schools. Schools have legal obligations to keep kids safe. In the US, it's manifest through a regulatory framework called CIPA, the Children's Internet Protection Act, and E-rate, which is a federal funding mechanism. And essentially, schools in the US not only have an obligation to keep kids safe, but they have a legal obligation to block pornography. If you're not blocking pornography on the school's network or on the school's issued devices, then you potentially lose access to federal funding. So schools in the US are super precious about funding and super precious about blocking pornography. And so they deploy filtering technology everywhere. And there is an industry that's been built over the 20 years in the States that's incredibly efficient at rolling out technology or selling technology, content filtering principally, into schools and rolling out, deploying it efficiently. I mean, we went live in a school district with 100,000 students a month or so ago, instantaneously, spun up the instance in a couple of hours, and the kids woke up the next morning and Family Zone was in control. That level of capability and the scale is only really available in the US, and that's why we've invested so heavily in going to that market where we're now taking off. The other thing that's really important to understand in the US context in particular is coronavirus. Coronavirus, at the most simplistic level, kids were sent home and parents were confronted with dealing with kids who now had these technologies in front of them and a lot more time on their hands. And all the research, funnily enough, is now proving that that's created mayhem in homes across the globe. And suicide rates, which is very sad, have increased enormously, but also just malevolent activity. E-Safety Commission talks a lot about this. Malevolent and risky activity has skyrocketed. And so coronavirus has highlighted what I've been talking about for years, which is schools can't just say, well, I'm looking after my school network and parents can do their own thing. That doesn't work anymore. Coronavirus highlighted mobility. School devices going home, creating problems at home. Personal mobiles going to school and creating problems at the school. That's what we do that no one else in the world seems to care about. And the reason for that is in the US, the history of cyber safety is really from internet security. It's about protecting funding and not so much about protecting the child. The other aspect of coronavirus that's really important to understand, particularly again in the US context, is funding. So the US government, through the CARES Act, which was the stimulus response to coronavirus, they're injecting $13 billion into online technology, really delivering learning devices, what they call one-to-one devices in the States, giving a kid a device that is theirs personally, that they can use at school and use at home. Now that CARES Act funding has actually created a worldwide shortage of Chromebooks. So there's something like an 18-month pipeline of orders in the US for rolling out Chromebooks, which means that our industry has this kind of massive pent-up demand of schools that are waiting for these Chromebooks to land so they can start deploying filtering technology and draw down that money. That's a huge opportunity for Family Zone in a massive market that's essentially doubling in size in the next 18 months. And we're outperforming our competitors. It's putting us in a really good position. And you'll see that in the next slides. This is our platform. Just to put this in context for those that don't know what we do. We have the world's first platform approach to cyber safety. And I know everyone talks platform, but truly is. And what it is a cloud-based platform system, basically, where you can register kids or students and so on, and then we can interact with that platform through we call enforcement technology, which might be sitting in a server at a school, in a router at home, or an app on the device. So our product offerings is school admin. We call it School Manager, which allows the IT admin to have complete control and complete visibility of the school. Our competitive advantage in schools in the US is really around that area, in that we offer a very broad, probably the broadest suite of technologies that suit the needs of the IT guy in the school districts and states, from cloud managed, on-premise, hybrid deployments, processing on the device, SSL decryption, you name it. We have an answer for the needs of the IT guy. And that's principally the reason why we're overperforming in the States. What we then have, again, uniquely, is the ability in the same platform for a school admin to delegate control to the teacher. So if the teacher's running a lesson on the use of marijuana in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, the teacher can be empowered by the admin to open up websites and videos and so on, dealing with matters that would otherwise typically be blocked. And again, we are the only provider in the world that offers that as an integrated solution within this the school platform. And that's what you're seeing there on the top right, the teacher platforms. Teachers in our schools can see the kids' screens, open up tabs, lock kids to watch a particular video. They have full control. Now, importantly, as part of our deployments, we get onto the student device. We get the school in the US through enterprise technology instantaneously to push our app onto the kid's device. And importantly, and the best thing about the US is kids can't delete it when it's deployed that way. So we can have super confidence that we can deploy at scale with speed and very reliably and provide a great experience. And that application sitting on the student's device is our bridge to mum and dad. And this is where our community products come in, which is where we enable parents to interact with our products and upgrade. And unbelievably excitingly in our business, it's that community piece, because in Australia and New Zealand, we're now getting more than 50%. I think it's just reached 52% of parents in our schools are using our products after school. And if you think of that in the context of, we've got over 1 million, I think it's 1.3 million students in the US using our products today. By this time next year, they'll be easily double that. And we'll be selling through those kids into those parents. And if I got anywhere near the penetration that we're getting in the US, then this is literally a rocket ship. So that's the platform, and in a sense, that's our business model. Sell to the compliance need of the IT guys in the school, deploy through the school onto the kids' devices, build a relationship, evaluated relationship with parents, and then hopefully upgrade a proportion of those to the paid product. And as I said, in Australia, our experience of what we call community, engaging with the parents and getting upgrades is a massive opportunity in the States. Next slide, please. Okay, let's go through some recent results. We put out some results as we always do in the first week of the quarter, and we massively de-risked the business. If anyone was ever concerned about the viability of the business, the growth profile of our business, and recent successes, or our cash flow, I think we put pay to those in the performance in September quarter. So we grew the base essentially 300% or more year on year. And it's year-on-year comparisons are really important in our industry because it is a cyclical business. Most sales in the US happen between April and August. So comparing us on a month-to-month basis doesn't make sense. It's a year-on-year comparison that's really important. And as I said, 300% plus year-on-year growth. We ended the quarter with 1.26 million students contracted on the platform. Within 7 days of this month, we've added another 50,000 students. So the growth hasn't subsided at all, despite the fact that the December quarter is really a low point in the sales cycle in the US. So amazing results, and it's put a lot of pressure on the business. There's without a doubt, we were 50% above budget, at a budget that was concluded in June. So it kind of shocked us, the level of take up of our product. Part of that was because of sales being stimulated by coronavirus, of course, but most of it was just through ordinary sales cycles, and our product now really getting a great reputation. We've got very high NPS scores, delighted customers throughout the US. We've only lost one district in the US, and that wasn't for our fault. It was because they were aggregated as part of an MSP deal. So our reputation is growing incredibly well, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide. So some really important achievements were made in this last quarter beyond just selling, at 3x what we did last year. Our conversion rate has now, from a lead that comes to our business, and you'll see this in this sales pipeline number here. In the last quarter, we converted 42% of deals. 42% of deals that were introduced to our business by our internal team or the channel. All deals in the US are facilitated through resellers, and more than half of the deals that we did in the September quarter came from the channel, and 42% of those we converted. Typical SaaS businesses like us would convert 20 to 30%, 30% at a high, and we're converting more than 40%. So we've very clearly got a product market fit in that market. And excitingly, again, it's really only available in the US because of the way that this sector works. I can now value that $3.5 million pipeline at about 40% and have predictability of about $1.5 million of recurring revenue that will come from that pipeline. So that's the visibility that we're now building in our business because of our consistently improving sales processes. POCs, every school in the US trials our product for a 4-week period, and we're converting more than 80% of those. In the beginning of the year, it was 87%, 83% in this quarter. That was an amazing result, and that's above industry performance. And one final thing I might add on conversion. So we've got a POC pipeline. We ended the last quarter with about $1 million in POCs. Again, if you look at the 83% conversion, I've got high expectation of almost my entire budget being delivered for the December quarter, even before I get into that December quarter. That's the power of that system in the US. Next slide. And to turn that into dollars, those student numbers into dollars, you can see here the delta between the orange column and the blue column before it is the value that we added to our customer base in that September quarter, $2 million. So I added $2 million of recurring revenue in the September quarter. To compare it to October, we've added $300,000 of recurring value to our business in 7 days. Again, that's the leverage that we get in the States. Next slide, please. And all of that good business that we've been delivering since, so the start of the sales cycle in the US of April has now, started to turn into cash flow. So $4.5 million came into the business in the September quarter, which is 250% year-on-year growth. You can see it there. It just really stands out. And that I'm hoping that investors now are buoyed by that and see that we are, fully funded within our business plan. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, more than $20 million of run rate in this business. So well funded, growing really well, great product fit, huge opportunities in the States. Next slide. I think that's, I think this is it. So this is kind of where we're at corporately. 330 million shares. I think we're about hovering around 50 cents. So, $160 odd million market cap. Getting a lot of good interest from institutional investors. So our share register's tightening up well and building good relationships with sophisticated investors. So I'm very happy with the corporate side of the business as well. Tim, any questions?
Thanks, Tim. Great story. It actually reminds me, we had Marley Spoon on and COVID provided them with a beta testing sort of environment where everything flew. And one of the questions we had for them was, how did you manage your business during this extraordinary period of growth? So I suppose we've got the same question for you.
Oh, look, it's been tough. I mean, fortunately for us, the good thing about our business, I was just on a staff global hangout this morning, talking to this. The good thing about our business is it's a passion project. Like we saved a life again 2 weeks ago. A kid was about to kill himself. Our systems detected it. We intervened, and that kid woke up the next day at home. And that resonates with every employee that we've got. So when the times are tough, you know, you've got a bug or you've got to work through the night, literally through the night, to deploy into these big districts in the US, our team steps up, because there is, you know, we're actually literally making a difference. So we've got, we save lives. We've got schools across Australia and New Zealand where every single parent at that school uses our product after school. So our business really owns that. Look, that's not, I can't leverage that forever, right? We're going to have to mature into an ordinary business that's not entirely passion driven, but that's gone a big way in our business.
And what's the sort of average revenue per user? You've got 1 million school kids, is around $5 or something like that. And what's the total size of the market? Yeah,
look, good question. So our ARPU per student per year is around about $7 Australian per year. If we can upgrade, the parent associated with that child to our consumer product, we're getting about $7 US or $10 Aussie per family per month. So it's really like a more than a 12 times uplift if you can sell through the school to mum and dad. And that's the real leverage in our business. The addressable market's enormous. We focus on what we call tier 2 to tier 4 school districts in the States. And that counts for about 80% of the 57 million students. So there's 40 million students in the US that are managed by districts that are between 10,000 and 50,000 in size. That's our sweet spot. That's where we can, our products are super effective, very easy to deploy, and margins are healthy. And that's certainly where we're focused.
And there's several questions here, but the theme is competition. Who else is in this space, and how easy is it for them to get into this space?
Look, we displace someone every time in the States. So by law, schools have to filter. So we are never in a greenfield situation, and we are beating big names from Cisco to Palo Alto to Lightspeed Systems, iBoss, Securely Go Guardian, you name it. We're always beating someone. All of our competitors in the kind of education-oriented products like Lightspeed and Securely Go Guardian kind of have a niche. They have a focus area. It might be Chromebooks or cloud filtering or classroom or so on. And that's not our model. Our model is to be quite broad. We really want to serve the needs of the IT guy in the school district, because the more IT guys that are our customers, the more parents we effectively give access to. Our competitors really focus on having best of breed product sets in a narrow area and try and improve yield that way. That's not our business model. Our yield comes from parental engagement. And none of our competitors have shown interest in parents. And again, this is the legacy of the business, the approach of that US model, which is really about protecting funding. So all of our competitors think about it from a very internet security centric or a school centric model. We're the only provider that extends this control, outside that school environment to mum and dad. So we're way ahead, focusing on, though, by the way, on our B2B business at the moment, and then B2B2C, what we call B2B2C transition in coming months and into next year.
And we've probably got time for just one quick question, quick answer, if you don't mind. The issue is, I've just lost my train of thought here. And sorry, there's some comment about US-driven lawsuits in terms of software bugs and things like that.
Wow, what's the question? I might answer one.
Comment about US-driven lawsuits if there's the software bug, fails to block, etc. So I suppose it's a question around your sort of security.
Yeah, look, no, we've never been exposed to that. The industry is actually quite tolerant to that stuff. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think filtering is more difficult than it is. The systems that sit behind content filtering, and there's probably 10 that do that. We don't do the categorization. We just buy categorization services. There's not much value in it. It's very commoditized categorization. The secret sauce in our industry is simplicity. It's making categorization meaningful for an IT administrator, allowing him to delegate control. So our value add isn't categorization, knowing that this particular website's got porn on it, that's effectively a free product globally. Our value add is packaging that up to make sense in an educational context or at home.